What if the most powerful person in the room said nothing at all? What if silence wasn't weakness, but the sharpest tool of dominance? In a world where everyone explains, reacts, and performs to be seen, what happens when someone doesn't? This isn't about disappearing. It's about becoming unreadable. Because the people we remember aren't always the loudest. They're the ones who made silence feel heavy, the ones who held back, and made the world lean in. And no one did that better than Leonardo da Vinci. He didn't chase attention. He controlled it, not with words, but with weight. And no one mastered that better than Leonardo da Vinci. He didn't need to shout. He didn't need to explain. He created silence and filled it with weight. This is not just a story about art. This is about how to win by saying less, about how to create presence, not by performing, but by holding back, and how one man used silence as a tool of domination for over 500 years. In every era, brilliance wears a mask. Sometimes it's loud. It announces itself. It demands recognition. But sometimes it doesn't speak. It doesn't shine. It hides. And yet, it moves everything. Leonardo da Vinci understood this. He wasn't just ahead of his time. He was outside of it. While others chased fame, he studied shadows. While others refined a craft, he rewired reality. Most people remember his paintings, a smile, a mural, a sketch. But Da Vinci's true genius wasn't in what he made. It was in what he embedded. Ideas layered beneath the surface. Connections nobody else could see. Influence hidden so deep, even history had to slow down to notice. Because real brilliance doesn't just create. It disperses. It weaves itself into systems and waits. Leonardo didn't work like the world around him. He didn't paint for patrons. He didn't write for readers. He didn't invent for applause. He studied the flow of water, the spiral of galaxies, the anatomy of flight, and wrote it all in notebooks no one else could read. Why? Because understanding was never his endgame. It was wiring. Da Vinci didn't want to impress you. He wanted to leave a map you'd discover long after he was gone. That's the truth nobody says. His work wasn't a performance, it was a puzzle. Scattered across disciplines, spread between pages, buried in margins. Most people never saw it. Most still don't. Because most people don't look for patterns they weren't taught to expect. Leonardo knew that, so he used it. He hid systems in sketches, insights in silence, power in footnotes, and mastery in moments so small, most people miss them completely. But that's the thing about power. The real kind doesn't show up with a title or a spotlight. It shows up when something shifts, and nobody can explain why. Da Vinci was that shift, not because of what he told the world, but because of what he seeded into it. His notebooks are filled with things no one asked for. Studies of waves, the muscles of a horse, the swirl of smoke, the shape of leaves. At a glance, they seem disconnected, even indulgent, but they weren't. He was building a mental library, a vocabulary of nature, because he understood something few artists, scientists, or strategists ever do, that everything is connected, and the person who sees the thread before others do controls the weave. He once wrote, "Learn how to see, realize that everything connects to everything else." But he didn't say that to be poetic. He said it because that's how he moved through the world, observing the unseen and mastering the margins. Leonardo didn't become a genius by dominating a single craft. He became a genius by dissolving the lines between crafts. He was a painter who sculpted through shading, a scientist who solved problems through drawing, an engineer who thought in metaphors, and a writer who wrote backwards, not to confuse but to compress thought. He wasn't trying to be mysterious. He was trying to store more meaning in less space. And that's where his real strength lived. Not in the final products, but in the compression of vision into fragments that could unfold endlessly. He didn't need your understanding. He needed time, because time favors what's layered, what's rich, what's difficult to reduce. And Da Vinci made sure he couldn't be reduced. He knew that greatness doesn't always need to be seen to be felt. Sometimes, it's the things you miss that change you the most. Leonardo wasn't building for approval. He was building for resonance. And resonance doesn't need applause. It needs alignment. Da Vinci aligned himself with the deepest patterns of nature, not because they were useful, but because they were true. He looked at the spiral of a snail and saw the same curve in hurricanes. He looked at the motion of water and saw how blood might move through the body. He didn't compartmentalize knowledge. He folded it, bent it, layered it, until everything became part of the same blueprint. This is what made him unreadable, and it's what made him unstoppable. He wasn't working on projects. He was working on a system of seeing, and most people never realized it because they were too focused on what he produced, not how he perceived. But perception is the real engine of influence. The way you see the world determines what you can build in it. Most people see what's obvious. Da Vinci trained himself to see what's underneath the obvious, the invisible architecture behind form. And once you see structure, you gain power. Because now, you're not reacting. You're designing. Da Vinci didn't chase mastery. He created micro-mastery. He didn't just study the anatomy of a horse. He drew each tendon, memorized how it moved, how it flexed under pressure, how it shifted weight between strides. Then he applied that to machines, then to human anatomy, then to physics. Every detail became a portal to something else. That's the genius nobody copies, because it's not what he learned. It's how he linked it all. Today, people search for productivity hacks. Da Vinci wasn't productive. He was relational. He didn't move fast. He moved deep. He understood that fast results fade, but deep insight compounds. So instead of output, he built insight density. One page of his notebook could take a lifetime to decode. Not because it was encrypted, but because it required you to think differently to understand it. And that's what real mastery does. It doesn't feed you answers. It forces you to level up. Most people create for validation. Da Vinci created his invitation. An invitation to look again, to question what you thought you knew, to go slower, to go wider. His work didn't end at the page. It began there. It planted seeds in the minds of others. And some of them took centuries to bloom. Because real legacy isn't built through dominance. It's built through depth. Da Vinci left breadcrumbs, not spotlights. And that's why he became eternal. His notebooks weren't just storage. They were pressure chambers of vision. Every stroke, every note, every fragment was compressed with perspective. He didn't need your interpretation. He knew time would handle that. And time did. 500 years later, we're still catching up. Still arguing about his intent. Still decoding sketches he never explained. Still chasing ideas he left unfinished, on purpose. That's not accident. That's design. Da Vinci didn't just work in secret. He engineered obscurity. Not to hide weakness, but to protect power. Because clarity is not always a gift. Sometimes it's a trap. Once people think they understand you, they limit you. They box you. They assign you to a category. But Da Vinci refused categories. He never gave the world the full picture. Because when people don't get the whole, they keep coming back to the part. They stare longer. They dig deeper. They feel more. That's influence without explanation. That's strategy without spotlight. That's unseen genius. Da Vinci didn't rush. He didn't fight to be first. He understood that in a world chasing urgency, patience becomes power. While others chased speed, he mastered rhythm. He'd abandoned projects for years, not because he gave up, but because the timing wasn't right. He let ideas breathe. He let truth arrive, not be forced. And when he returned, his work carried a weight no rush job ever could. This is what most people misunderstand about momentum. It's not just movement. It's meaningful direction. Da Vinci wasn't inactive. He was calibrating. He wasn't frozen. He was refining. His stillness wasn't absence. It was pressure, building. And pressure builds awe. When it finally releases, you don't remember who shouted the loudest in a crowd. You remember the one who said nothing, until the silence became unbearable. Da Vinci's life was a tension between contradiction and control. He was a man of faith who dissected bodies, a pacifist who designed machines of war, a scientist who painted miracles. To the average mind, that's chaos. But to Da Vinci, it was integration. He wasn't trying to resolve the paradox. He was living it. That's why people still don't know how to categorize him. Painter, anatomist, philosopher, engineer. He blurred the edges of every label until labels lost meaning. And in that loss, he became untouchable. When people can't define you, they elevate you. They stop measuring and start mythologizing. Because contradiction, when owned, becomes depth. It shows you're not confined to one frequency, that you've mastered complexity without needing to simplify yourself for others. Da Vinci didn't just contradict norms, he contradicted himself, intentionally. That's power. Not the power to be one thing clearly, but to be many things, silently. We live in a time that rewards performance. Speak faster, be clearer, post more, explain everything. Da Vinci broke every rule of modern communication, and yet his silence echoes louder than any speech. He didn't go viral. He went timeless. Because he wasn't broadcasting, he was embedding. And embedded truth doesn't need a platform. It just needs presence. Look at how he operated in conversation. He didn't interrupt. He didn't react. He'd listen, sometimes sketching, seemingly disengaged. But later, he'd ask one question that changed the direction of the entire room. Because when you observe long enough, you see what others miss. You wait. You track patterns. And when you speak, you don't add noise. You break it. That's the art of strategic presence. You don't need to dominate the room. You need to redirect it. And the only way to do that is to first be willing to say nothing. Silence, when grounded in observation, creates weight. It's not passive, it's pressure. Da Vinci knew how to make people feel it, without force. He didn't argue for respect. He commanded it, with restraint, because what you hold back builds tension, and tension, when managed, becomes gravitational. It pulls people toward you. They don't know why. They just feel something in your stillness they can't explain. And they lean in. That's the zone Da Vinci lived in. Not clarity, not volume, but magnetic ambiguity. It's not about confusing people. It's about requiring them to look twice. Because when they look twice, they invest. And when they invest, they remember. This isn't about copying Da Vinci. It's about thinking like him, in a world that's forgotten how. Unreadability today doesn't mean secrecy. It means selectivity. It means not everything you know gets shared. Not everything you feel gets posted. Not every insight gets published on impulse. In a world that rushes to expose, the person who withholds becomes valuable. So how do you practice it? Let's bring it down to earth. In conversations, don't rush to fill silence. Let others speak first. Let them guess where you stand. Then choose your words like a scalpel, not a hammer. In conflict, don't defend every point. Now, sometimes silence disarms more than argument. People expect resistance, but stillness, that rattles them. In creativity, stop sharing process prematurely. Let your work develop in solitude, not in public validation. Da Vinci's greatest ideas were hidden for years, some forever, and that mystery made them immortal. In leadership, don't micromanage the narrative. Let people feel your direction, not just hear it. Presence speaks when words don't. And in relationships, don't rush to be known completely. Leave space for curiosity. Depth doesn't come from exposure. It comes from discovery. Unreadability isn't manipulation. It's discipline. It's trusting that your value isn't in how fast you're understood, but in how long people remember you. People won't remember the post that explained everything. They'll remember the pause that said nothing, but made them think. They'll remember the glance that held weight, the absence that created presence. They'll remember you because you left something unfinished. That's the paradox of power. The more you hold back, the more they lean in. The goal isn't to confuse. It's to become unreducible. To not be one quote, one job title, one soundbite, one type. Da Vinci mastered that. He didn't explain himself. He became a question. And questions stay with us longer than answers ever could. If you want your presence to last, don't try to be loud. Be layered. Build mystery not by being unclear, but by being whole and not handing yourself over all at once. Mystery isn't the absence of truth. It's the delayed reveal of it. That delay creates power, and power doesn't need volume. It needs gravity. Da Vinci didn't chase clarity. He commanded curiosity. That's the lesson. Not to be silent always, but to speak with weight, to let stillness become part of your presence. When you speak less, what you say matters more. When you show less, what you reveal lands harder. And when you withhold just enough, you're not forgotten. You're studied. And that's the difference. That's what makes silence not an absence, but an edge. We live in an era of constant noise. Everyone is speaking. Everyone is explaining. Everyone is trying to be understood. Now, faster, louder. But the people we remember, they didn't rush to be known. They made the world wait. Leonardo da Vinci didn't need to post updates. He didn't chase relevance. He created it by choosing what not to say. Power doesn't come from volume. It comes from weight. And weight is created in the pauses, in the gaps, in the tension between what's known and what isn't. That's where presence lives. Not in the spotlight, but in the shadow it can't quite reach. So here's the challenge. Can you hold back long enough to be felt, not just seen? Can you resist the pressure to be defined so you can't be dismissed? Can you be the one who speaks not to impress, but to imprint? You don't need to explain everything. You need to mean more than they can say. In your absence, they'll chase. In your restraint, they'll find meaning you never had to spell out. That's power. Quiet, measured, lasting. And here's what matters most. You don't need to be a genius. You don't need to be Da Vinci. You just need the discipline to stay unreadable, to speak like a verdict, to build slowly, to let your presence grow in the silence you leave behind. Say less, withhold more. Let them lean in, because the less they hear, the more they will remember.